All right, everyone. So I've been playing a ton of Battlefield 6, and I have to say, this game lived up to everything that I hoped it would in the beta. Now, is the game perfect? No, but no game is perfect. At the end of the day, I feel like Battlefield 6 takes me back in a time machine to when I was sitting there playing Battlefield 3. And what I mean by that is back in the day, whether it was Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare 2, World at War, any of them, we always complained about stuff, right? We always were mad about this and that, and this weapon's overpowered, this map stinks, whatever it was. We would always be complaining. But at the end of the day, we were addicted to the games, number one. The games were so well made, and you could tell they were made with a love for what the game was supposed to be. And so, even though we were complaining, every day we'd get up, turn on the Xbox, turn on the PlayStation, turn on, the computer and play all of these games. And that's how I feel about Battlefield 6. To me, and we'll go through some in future videos or whatever, some of the critiques and where maybe the game is lacking and all of that. But to be fair, we're still at the beginning of this thing, right? We're not even, I don't think, truly in season one yet. So we'll see what they add, and maybe things change for the better, maybe things change for the worse. But in this current state it's in right now, if you are a Battlefield fan, I think there is no way, shape, or form where you could be disappointed with what they've given you. And I want to be clear that I didn't just say if you are a Battlefield fan for no reason. I mean that entirely just like that. Because what I'm trying to say is that, someone like me who back in the day I played a lot of Call of Duty, I did play Battlefield 3, but there was a distinct difference between Battlefield and Call of Duty, right? Call of Duty was kill streaks. Call of Duty was, kind of more of a less of an objective based game, even though there are modes with objectives and more of a, personal, like, can we go get these kills based game? And that's not what Battlefield was. Battlefield was KD doesn't matter. None of that matters. What we're doing here is all about the objective in kind of these bigger than life, real war type feel, right? Like when you play Call of Duty, you don't feel like, oh, we're in like a battle. Like this is a war that we're in. You don't feel that way. In Battlefield, you actually do. You feel like this is a larger than life. You're part of this team, and the individual matters a lot less. And that's why I said if you're a Battlefield fan, you can't be disappointed because I think people miss what this game should be. You hear maybe some complaints and you go, yeah, but it's not really meant for that. This game is not meant to appeal to anything but those core fans. And I don't mean that, people that are new coming to the game shouldn't, they shouldn't make it for as large of an audience as possible. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is if you're making a Battlefield game, make it a Battlefield game. You don't have to extend it out and make it anything different than what it is. And that's where this thing absolutely hits it out of the park. And every time I step over to my Xbox, sit in the chair and decide, you know what, we're going to play some Battlefield, I feel like I'm playing Battlefield. There's been a lot of Battlefield games since Battlefield 3 where you just don't always feel that. You don't get that larger than kind of life war, some of the things I've done in this game, whether it's when you're in a tank, you're in a helicopter, you're in one of those, uh, you know, um, whatever it is, right? Any of the vehicles that are in this, you just feel it's just so awesome, right? It's such a great experience. And yes, when Black Ops 7 comes out, I will be playing that, and I'll see which one I play more than the other. I don't know to this point which one I will. I'll certainly be playing both of them a little bit, but which one I play more, that's yet to be seen. But all I'm saying is we can at least to this point confirm, okay, that they did their job making this game the way it is. And that's so exciting because we're finally going to get, and we'll see what Black Ops 7 ends up being. We're finally going to get a situation where, we haven't had this in decades, where we have a battlefield that is kicking ass, taking names. It is like a battlefield. And if you're not really a Battlefield player and you want to go play Call of Duty, then you go play Call of Duty and you enjoy that. It's just such a great moment, I think. Now, can they screw this thing up? Sure, right? They could screw it up. They could, whether it's microtransactions or whatever. But at least as of right now, we could report, okay, that this has all of the fun aspects put in here. And I know, like I said, it's not perfect. Okay. There are complaints that people have, and those complaints are things that they should work to fix. But there's never going to be a perfect game. I always like to do something when, I go back and I watch old Call of Duty 4. I go back and I watch old World at War, Modern Warfare 2 videos from, like, this is when I was a kid watching YouTube, and I remember watching some of these videos as a kid, like, and you hear the YouTubers complaining about certain things in the game, and it's funny because obviously those YouTubers, when they look back now, they'd go, "Man, we were living through a great time," right? But of course, there's no perfect game, right? And you don't really know what you have until it's gone. And the critiques they were making at the time weren't wrong necessarily, right? They were saying what they felt. It's just we didn't know how good we had it. And so to kind of feel like we're getting maybe back to it, right? To feel like finally these companies are waking up, even on the Call of Duty side of this, right? Where a lot of people are saying, well, Battlefield forced their hand, right? To have to make these changes. Fine, right? That's a good thing. That's exactly what we used to have, right? Where back in the day, Call of Duty couldn't just put out any game they wanted because if it wasn't good, people weren't going to play. Right now, they felt, hey, we could just put anything out there and we could do it. EA with Battlefield, right? They felt with Battlefield back in the day they were competing in a sense, not for Call of Duty's player base necessarily, because I do think they're two distinct games, but they were competing to be taken seriously like Call of Duty. So they had to make these great games, right? Everything had to fit. And, and then they decided, I think, as we kind of went on, and to be fair, Battlefield has certainly had some better games as of late than Call of Duty necessarily has. But Battlefield, right, they had things where there were server problems and different things that really caused some issues, and people weren't happy with the series. This game has completely fixed it. Um, and because of that, we're getting this great game. And I'm so excited to see what comes next with this Battlefield series. I just think there's a good selection of weapons, there's a good selection of modes, there's a good selection of maps. I know some people don't think there's big enough maps. And by the way, that's a real concern, okay? Because, when you're talking about these kind of larger than life battles, not having those massive maps might make some people upset. But I think they did it, and maybe they'll add some bigger maps, but they did it in a way to kind of keep things a little bit faster paced, right? To keep things exciting while also keeping that Battlefield feel. And I think they got that. But we'll see. Maybe they're going to go ahead and make those changes, and in core, in new maps, corresponding maps, we'll get, hey, some bigger ones, and people will kind of be excited about that. I know they're talking about maybe naval stuff coming in here, like naval battles, which I'm all for. um, I just hope that they continue to lock in on what has made this game a success, and that is when you're making a game, you have to find, okay, what's the core audience that we want to attract to start, right? So that's your foundation. Is what's our core audience? Battlefield fans, right? So the first group of people we have to appeal to and we have to make happy are the people that love our game and have been supporting us. And then you go, okay, so now that we have them, how do we branch out a little bit more, right? And add some other things. And you could do that and keep the game that you love. Far too often, developers don't work that way. They say, okay, well, how do we appeal to the largest group? And they end up appealing to nobody, right? With this, I think they've done a good job of appealing to the hardcore fans and making a fun game that people are willing to try out. And I don't think if you hear somebody complain about the game or say it's this or that, or I like Call of Duty more, I don't think that's actually a negative on the game. I think that's just Battlefield being Battlefield. This has been the case since Call of Duty 4, Battlefield 3, Battlefield 2. There was always this deal of some people liked Battlefield, some didn't. Some like Call of Duty, some didn't. And so the fact that we're back to this, where the complaints are entirely map based, right? Like, or is this weapon overpowered and that kind of stuff, versus what we've seen so much over the last, decade or so with online games are, none of the discussion has even really been about the game. It's been about microtransactions. It's been about servers. It's been about games just being made poorly. And those things, when those are your problems, they're so fixable. These companies just refuse to do it, right? Like, this is the thing we talked about with Call of Duty. It's like the matchmaking issues, which were a foundational problem that people had, right? Like the people that have been kind of sounding the alarm on this for literally a decade, they have been talking about this. That's the easiest fix you could have. is something like that, right? That's the easiest fix you can have, and Call of Duty just said, "We're not going to fix it. We're just gonna refuse to fix it until now." But when you have those things that are so foundationally wrong, you don't even like, you're not even getting a start to have a good game. Like, once your matchmaking stinks, once people aren't happy with how that's going, guess what? They're not going to be supportive of the game at all. It doesn't matter if everything else about it was perfect. And I think, playing a Battlefield game where the discussion is not about, is there a loot crate or a loot box? I'm not saying Battlefield used to have those, to be fair. I'm just, things like Battlefront, right? Stuff like that had those. Or, you know, Battle Pass, like the fact that that's not our discussion, right? Our discussion is about, should there be bigger maps, or are these guns, too overpowered? I'm like, yes, right. These are the kind of things we want to have, because guess what? That means we're playing the game, we're having fun with the game, and we just want to improve the game. Versus this game launches, the server stink. It doesn't feel like Battlefield. It's trying to appeal to Call of Duty fans instead of just appealing to its core group of people that support the game, and people that newcomers who will end up becoming hardcore Battlefield fans. I just think this has been so great, and so like I said, this could change. I could, you could be hearing from me in a few months, and I'm like, this game is terrible now because they messed this up, they messed this up, they messed this up. All I know is I'm having a great time playing it. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.